Hello, my name is Danny Molzen. I'm the head football coach at Cache Valley High School. The counseling department asked me to do a little presentation on recruiting, NCAA eligibility stuff. I'm not an expert, but I've dealt with a lot of college coaches and fortunately have sent a few kids to play college football. And so I've dealt with some of these processes that might present themselves. So obviously as a football coach, things might be a little different from my sport, but hopefully some of this information will be relevant to you. I think a lot of it will be relevant to you and your child if they have a desire to play college athletics. So let's get going. Recruiting process. So, and again, I'm going to look at it from more of a football perspective, but it's some of the stuff is similar to other sports. So this is football. This is not necessarily every single sport, but for football, there's a lot more money and resource at the Division I level, and I'll speak about these a little bit later. So sometimes, depending on the sport, recruiting can happen as early as freshman or sophomore year, depending on the sport. So doesn't mean don't get discouraged if your son or daughter is not a junior or senior, but most likely, it does restart a little earlier for some sports. Scholarships and opportunities can present themselves later on as a student, as a kid develops and gets bigger, faster, stronger, a better hitter, faster swimmer, whatever it may be. But also understand that the top schools obviously have more money and resources than some of the smaller schools. And that might also delay some of the recruiting processes for some of the smaller schools. Hopefully that makes sense there. This is for football. So this is different. This is very specific to my sport. So football obviously is a very big revenue sport. So there's a lot more money in football recruiting. So college coaches are constantly on campus, not constantly, but are on campus often during the school year. But I would assume for most sports, this in red is what most college coaches are asking high school coaches if they interact with high school coaches. Is they want to know kind of character a kid has, do they have the grades, and are they a great player? And for every sport, they may not have scholarships available for your particular position at a sport. Let's say you're a goalie in soccer, and they already have 3 goalies on their roster. Well, maybe they're not looking for a goalie. That's just so. There also is also a numbers game as well. So these are things that I do, and for football, again, probably not specific to your student, but this is how things kind of work with how I interact with football coaches throughout the year. Big thing for football, and I think it's a lot for baseball, softball, basketball that I know of, I'm sure other sports as well, is that college coaches use Twitter almost exclusively. I know our kids don't use Twitter as much. They're more in the TikTok and Snapchat world, but college coaches use Twitter. That's what they use. So if your kids do want to get recruited, they should develop and create their own Twitter page. And I'll show you an example of a good example of what a kid's Twitter page should look like. Also, without saying, I think we all know what they put on social media, what they like, what they retweet, what all that stuff can matter and can be a big swing in terms of a kid being recruited or not getting recruited, or potentially an offer or scholarship opportunity. So it's important what they do on there on the social media. So again, Twitter is the biggest one coaches usually use. This is just an example. I think this is a basketball kid. I can't remember, a football kid. Again, just an example of what a good social media page looks like for a high school athlete. Has their name, has any type of test scores, grades, core GPA. I'll explain that later. For some sports, they want huddle highlights. If you play other sports, whatever it is. So a coach can click on that kid's page and find a lot of information about them right away. They don't want to see, they don't want to search and try to find your name. Your Twitter page is, Cache Valley superstar baseball hitter 274944. Then they're not going to find you. So your name and as much information so they can look at that, because they're looking at hundreds, if not thousands of kids. So if they can click on you and find as much information they can about you, that will help you potentially getting recruited or getting part of the process. What can the student do right now? So a lot of people ask me, what can I do as a parent? But also the days and age, the recruiting world has changed, and more kids actively have to do things. Now, some of the stuff parents can help with, but what can the students do? It's like a job, right? If they want the job, they got to apply for it. They got to actively push for it. They got to work for it. It's the same kind of idea with the scholarship or getting recruited at the next level. Got to be doing well in school. I'll talk about grades in a little bit. Obviously, do their best to be the best athlete possible. For football, bigger, faster, stronger. Follow and direct message coaches on Twitter. For football, I tell our kids follow coaches that coach their position, or for football, each school has a recruiting coordinator. Those are the ones you want to follow. Following the head coaches for football, unless you're a top recruit, probably is not going to go anywhere. Every school has their own questionnaire. So if you click on, let's just say Cal basketball, they should have a link for recruits for a questionnaire. And that is free. It takes probably 5 minutes, but it gets you in their database. So that's one way to get you into their database, so that you get information, whether it's camps or whether they search it and they find you and they look at you and this kid may fit something that we like. So I tell our kids, think of 5 dream schools, 5 other top choices, and then you got to also have some other choices as well. You can't just shoot for the moon and miss, because you might miss some opportunities in the other level of football or sports. And get on campus, go on unofficial visits. I'll talk about visits a little bit later as well. For football, go see some spring practices. Most college sports have camps. Like for football, they have a lot of camps in June, mostly June, a little bit early July. But go up there, get seen by college coaches as much as you possibly can. So those are things that the student athlete can do right now. Number one, obviously, take care of business in the classroom. The process, the NCAA process. Okay, how do you get cleared to be eligible for a potential scholarship or opportunity to play college football or sports? I tell my players, you should always, again, it's not mandatory, but I say you should fill out a FAFSA. That opens up October 1st of a student's senior year. I say that because even if you think your parents, maybe you're doing well financially, but let's say one school that presents itself is $70,000 a year. Maybe you do pretty well financially, but you can't afford $70,000 a year. So a FAFSA might fill the gap for that opportunity if it presents itself. So my point is, you never know what's going to present itself. It's free. It takes some time, but it is going to need some information from parents. But I always say it's better to do it. Again, give yourself as much chance as possible. You never know what opportunity might present itself. So FAFSA starts October 1st of senior year. Now, Cal grants must be submitted between October 1st and March 2nd of a student's senior year. Eligibility Center used to be called the Clearinghouse. This website, and if you just Googled NCAA Eligibility Center, it would pop right up. This website, students have to create and be cleared by the Eligibility Center to be eligible to play Division I or Division II. Division III, no. And NAIA, I'll talk about later, is its own separate eligibility center. So if you have any desire to play Division I or Division II sports, you have to be cleared by the NCAA Eligibility Center. And again, if you just Google NCAA Eligibility Center, it'll pop up. What is it? It's an organization that basically looks at the academics and says, yep, this student is eligible to play. This student is a amateur, and yes, they can play college sports. Again, it takes their transcript and test scores And I'll show you how that goes into a process here in a bit. Eligibility Center. It's a one-time fee. It's $90. There is a waiver, so if financially it's unattainable, there is a waiver you can apply for. But again, this is not saying you're going to get a scholarship. You're going to be recruited, but it will help with the process if your student is being recruited or potentially playing college sports. It doesn't mean they're going to get into the school either. Is your student on track? So a lot of kids think, oh, I'm a freshman, it doesn't matter. Freshman year matters. So if your student is kind of on the bubble with grades, they still got a whole other quarter to get them set up for the spring semester of their freshman year, if your student is a freshman, to make sure your grades are getting better. So freshman year. So if your student's a freshman right now, these are some things they can be doing. Now, again, I'm looking from a football lens, but pretty much same for every sport. Obviously, taking care of business in the classroom. I'll talk about core classes in a little bit. That's basically your college prep classes for the most part. Make sure that they meet with the counselor to take an appropriate core classes as a sophomore. Again, predominantly college prep classes. And they can ask their counselor, what are the NCAA approved classes? And most of our college prep classes are. There's a free account. So I told you Eligibility Center has a $90 fee. You can also get a free account that just gets you information. If you're being recruited or not. If you just have any desire to play college sports, you can do a free account. And a lot of times they'll send you information, updates to the process, because the rules are always changing. So you can do that as a freshman. Get involved with things. I tell our kids, it's always good to be involved with things, whether it's clubs, whether it's sports, whether it's church or other things. Just get involved with stuff. It's not going to hurt you, and it's only going to help you for your application for college if sports don't happen. So get involved. That's freshman year stuff. Sophomore, continue obviously taking care of business in the classroom. I tell our kids now, a lot of schools now are not using the SAT or ACT, which is fine. So it's not mandatory to take the ACT or ACT, but some schools, especially some of the private schools, they still might be a requirement. So I tell our kids, it's not going to hurt you. Now, obviously a low score is not ideal, but take one. Now, again, it's not mandatory. Obviously there's a fee behind it, but I try to tell them you should try to take it, between the end of your sophomore year and early your junior year, ideally. Again, more and more schools are not using that test, but I still think it's very valuable and can help a student. And I'll show you how in a little bit. If you're being actually recruited as a sophomore, think about getting that certified eligibility account. That's where it has a $90 fee in it, and then ask the registrar's office to send your transcript in. And then again, they'll start calculating your core GPA and stuff like that. If your sport has day camps at colleges, get on some college campuses and get to a couple college camps. My kids ask, how many should I go to? Again, a lot of times they cost money. For football, anywhere between $30 and $80 usually for a day camp. So obviously there's a financial cost. So obviously, I tell our kids, a couple, 3, 4 max, but be smart, be selective, pick camps that, be realistic too. And I'll talk about expectations and odds and stuff like that in a minute. But nothing wrong with going on a couple college camps. I know some sports like baseball have showcases where a lot of college coaches go to. Those are awesome too. Volunteer, play sports, do activities, clubs, etc. Junior year, again, stay on top of those grades. I forgot to put this in the previous slide, but when you register, when you take the SAT or the ACT, you want to add the code 999. There's some codes like for schools. That's the code for the Eligibility Center, so it'll automatically send your score to the Eligibility Center. So that's one less thing you or the registrar or someone has to do of sending that to the Eligibility Center. Still, again, this is football specific. Join clubs and organizations for football, go to some spring practices. For football, they have what's called the Junior Day, where San Jose just had one. We just had some kids go to it last Saturday, where They get to talk to some of the head coach and some other people, get the information about the program. They get, for San Jose, we got to go in their weight room, and then we were on the field and watched the practice, and our kids got to talk to some coaches afterwards. It was an unofficial visit. They called it their junior day just to get kids on campus that might potentially, doesn't mean they're going to be, but might potentially be recruits or kids that are just interested in college sports. One-day camps for football, there's showcases and things that include stuff like some showcases where there's companies called Rival for Football, Rivals, and 24/7. They're the major recruiting websites. Some of these camps can be money makers, in my opinion. They're trying to make money off kids. I tell our kid, you want college coaches' eyes on you. Those are the ones who are going to offer you scholarships, or potentially. It's not going to be some of these other camps. They might be great for skill development, but if your goal is to try to get your foot in the door as potential, get recruited and or scholarship offer, you want college coaches' eyes on you. And college coaches can't go to these random camps. Some of these camps might say they have recruiters at their camps, but if they're Division I, Division II, they can't go to non-NCAA approved camps with that. And for football, probably like for basketball and some other sports, soccer, you want to create a highlight film, and for that, it's your huddle highlight film. Senior, take the SAT. I recommend, if you haven't taken it yet, go to the College Board, how to register, start preparing for your applications for college. Again, sports may not happen. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. There's some due dates for UC, CSU, and others usually December, January. Do your FAFSA, again, by starting October 1st. If you're being heavily recruited, you will go on official visits. That's when the school, I don't know how it works for every sport. Again, I'm looking from a football perspective, this is when the college says, hey, yeah, we really, really want you, and we want you to come on an official visit. You're allowed 5 official visits by the NCAA. And that's when the school flies you out there. So let's say it's at Oregon. I'm just using the school randomly. If your student's being recruited by Oregon, they'll fly you out there. And I think it's up to two parent or family members. And they put you up in a hotel, they take care of you, they pay for your flights, and they try to, wow you and try to get you to commit to that school. And obviously parents can ask questions and see facilities and go and probably see a game or match or whatever it is as well. Yeah. And then highlight film for football. For seniors, it's that first 5 games that really matters for senior year. Are you ready? So there's some things to check your checklist. Do you have your core GPA good? Have you taken the SAT or ACT? Again, not a requirement, but beneficial. Have you done the eligibility center? And have you done your FAFSA? If you've done those 4, again, this is some of the stuff senior year stuff, but those are the kind of things, your checklist. Are you ready for the NCAA? And this is a thing that I put out there that for coaches, like from a coach's check, for myself and a college coach. These are some intangibles checklists. I want to be able, when I'm talking to a college coach, I want to be able to check all these boxes. Boom, 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 boom. Now, again, I cannot lie to a coach, because then it hurts my reputation, and then it hurts opportunities for kids coming up maybe next year or 2 years, something like that. So I got to be honest with the coaches when they come on campus. Again, it's not to hurt a child's opportunity, but I have to be truthful about them. So the more boxes as a coach I can check and be truthfully 100% honest, that gives them more opportunities to play. And again, I don't give scholarships, so at the end of the day, it's the coaches that make decisions. Some sports more than others, they rely on high school coaches more than others. Again, depends on the sport. Got a good work ethic. For football, are you in the weight room? For my sport, are you coachable? Are you a good teammate? Are you dependable? Do you have leadership skills? Do you want to play? Do you really want to do this? And that last question is a big one for football too. There's a lot of times you get kids that just want to be recruited. They want to get the attention, or they really, really want to play. And I think a lot of kids don't understand at the next level, Division I, Division II level, it's like a job. And not saying it's a job where you got to hate, but it's a lot of time and effort you're putting into this sport because the school is giving you money and taking care of you. A lot of times, sometimes, full ride scholarships worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. They expect something out of you. So do you really love playing, or do you want to get recruited? And there's a big difference there. And unfortunately, some kids find out the hard way when they go to college. So here's some differences in NCAA. I know I'm giving you a ton of information. That can be overwhelming. I get it. So this is now, again, this is some of these schools are football. Some sports aren't quite like this. Like I think basketball only has Division I. I don't think they have a subdivision. So this is broken down for football. So again, it might be a little different for your student's sport. So there's different levels of sport, Division I and Division II. Again, for football, Division I's they're broken into two subdivisions. There's the bowl subdivision and a subdivision they used to call 1AA, which is now FCS. So again, football a little different. Some schools there, examples of Division I schools for football. Division I FBS, you're talking Cal, Stanford, Alabama, Michigan. Those are your Division I schools. Division I FCS for football is states like Sac State, schools like Sac State, UC Davis, Cal Poly. Division II, again, a lot of times a little smaller schools. For example, for football, it was Central Washington, Western Oregon. For a lot of other sports, football, they don't have football at Sonoma or Humboldt State. Those are Division II schools. Chico State is a Division II school. Division III is a lot of smaller schools, private schools. In California, there's a lot of them down south. There's some around here, but none of them have football around here. There's several down south that have football. Chapman, Cal Lutheran, Redlands, usually small private schools, very expensive. There's a lot more back east that are not as expensive, but California private Division III schools, small private schools are pretty expensive. And then junior college in California, for example, Chabot, Laney, DVC, Contrast are all junior colleges here in California. There's a lot more across the country, obviously. What are the requirements to be a qualifier? Going back to that eligibility center. There's a sliding scale. Now, again, the rules have probably changed since I've done this presentation. If you don't take the SAT, you probably just need the core GPA. I don't know for a fact on that, but that's what I'm assuming because more and more schools aren't requiring the SAT. Sliding scale. So the higher your GPA is, the lower your SAT is. Needs to be. For example, if you have a 2.5 core GPA, I'll explain that in a minute what core is. You need a 900 or 68 ACT. If you got a 3.5 GPA, you only need a 430 SAT or 37 ACT. If you meet those requirements, you are considered, quote, a qualifier, which means you are eligible to play your freshman year of college. For Division I, it's right here, 2.3 core GPA with a minimum 780 SAT or 75 ACT. That's the minimum you have to have. Now, some schools may not accept the minimum. Like for example, Stanford. You are not going to get recruited by Stanford with a 2.3 core GPA. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. There's no way in heck. So obviously, some of the schools can have their own higher requirements than others. Like for example, I was talking to a coach from UC Davis. 3.0 is their bare minimum that they'll even look at kids, again, because the academic requirements a little bit higher at that school. Division II, again, talking Humboldt State, Sonoma State, Chico State, then a little bit smaller schools. There's no sliding scale. You got to have a 2.2 core GPA. I'll, again, go over that, and an 820 SAT or 68 ACT. Here's core classes. This is for all Division I athletes. I don't care what sport it is, golf, basketball, wrestling. You got to have 16 core classes. So you got to have 4 years of English, which most of our kids take anyway, so that's not an issue. 3 years of math, integrated 1 or higher, so college prep courses. 2 years of science, that's 9 right there. 1 more year of English, math, or science. Most of our kids take 3 years of science or 4 years of math, again, either or. 2 years of social studies, which our kids automatically get because they get They get world history, U.S. history, and government and econ. That's actually 3 years. Actually get they get 3.5 because they also get a half a year with CCG. Anyways, they only need 2. And then with that, the rest you can use, like for example, your other history classes you can include. You can include foreign language. If you want to take 2 math classes 1 year, you can use another math class. So you got to have 16 core classes. That's how you get your core GPA. So basically, again, college prep classes minus PE and arts and health. I think, yeah, health is not a core class. So that's what you got to have 10 done by your senior year. So that's for Division 1. Division 2, you only need 14 core classes. But if you've reached Division 1 right criteria, you've met Division 2's criteria. So I tell kids, just get Division 1 done. If you work on Division 1, you'll get Division 2. A little less, 3 years of English, 2 years of math, but again, pretty much the same. Division 3, again, those are those small private schools. We are talking, again, Chapman, Cal Lutheran. There is no eligibility center. You just got to meet the school's requirements. So, like, for example, I believe a lot of those Division 3 schools won't recruit anybody for football, with less than a 3.5 and AP classes. Again, just that's what their standard is. But you don't have to do anything in terms of eligibility center. You just got to be able to meet their school's requirements, and that goes in that FAFSA. So those are expensive schools. A lot of them do offer academic scholarships that a lot of athletes get, but still, that may still be charged. After all that happens, you still may be having to pay several $1,000s a year, depending on the school. NAIA. So these are really small schools. There's not a ton in California. There's some, but most of these, there's a lot of NAIA schools in the Midwest. They are not the NCAA. So if you're getting recruited by an NAIA school, you have to do their own eligibility center. And I can't think of any off the top of my head here, because for football, there is none. Again, there's a ton in the Midwest for football. They have scholarships. They're broken down. This is how many they get for every sport. So, for example, football, 24, soccer, baseball, track and field, lacrosse, cheer, they have 12. And they could break them up. So they might only give you half, a quarter, whatever it is. They have their own eligibility center. Again, this would be a separate thing from the NCAA. Their requirements are a little lower. Again, every school can have their own though. 2.0 with an 970 or 18 ACT. That ACT seems wrong. I might have to fix that. Scholarships. Now this is football, so I'm going to skip football because most of your kids probably don't play football, and I already showed my football parents and kids this. This is how it is for men's sports. Football is 85, Division 1. Basketball and football are the only 2 sports that have full scholarships. Everything else, cross country down, they are not full scholarships. You might be given a scholarship. Maybe it's room and board. Maybe it's tuition. Maybe it's books. I don't know. But this is how many they get, and they can all be divided. For example, baseball, there's probably 30 guys on a baseball team at the college level, if not more. So that means they got to divide 11.7 scholarships among 30 kids. Some kids will get a little more. Some really, really good players might get half, maybe 3/4. But then a lot of them are going to get a lot less. That's just how many are available. Why does basketball and football have fully guaranteed, full ride scholarship Division 1 level? Is because they're major revenue making sports. To be honest with you, that's the reason why. Not that the other sports don't make revenue, they just don't make as much revenue as football and basketball. Women's sports, the same as men's, except for football, because there's no really football at the Division 1 level for women. Basketball, I believe, as well, just like men's, is full ride. I can be wrong on that, so don't quote me on that. But same thing, 12.6 for cross country, track and field. Softball is the equivalent of baseball scholarships. Oops, I have golf on there twice. I apologize. Soccer, 9.9, swimming, wrestling, golf, and tennis. If you don't see your kids' sport on here, lacrosse should be on here. God, I don't have lacrosse. My apologies. But like rugby. Rugby is a club sport, Division I level, so they don't have scholarships available for that sport. This is just football, so I'm going to skip this. The point with this slide is just saying that this is not 100% guaranteed. This, you have to meet these, but it's just to let people know there. A lot of times there's a physical aspect that you have to meet to be a Division I athlete. And again, this isn't perfect because some guys might be smaller, a little lighter, a little heavier, a little shorter, and are exceptional athletes. But this is just an average kind of typical height, weight, speed that colleges will look for. Again, it's not guaranteed or 100% that you got to be 6'2" as a receiver to get a scholarship at Division I level. That's not what I'm saying. This is just a generalization about the average height and weight for those positions. Again, football specific. This is football, so this is not for you. My little caveat down there is that not all coaches do what I do for their athletes, because recruiting is different for every sport. It just is. Like, for example, baseball and softball, that is a lot more is done with summer ball and travel ball and showcases than high school sport, the high school coaches. Doesn't mean high school coaches can't be involved with the process, but I know for a fact that baseball, a lot of that happens with that stuff. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It doesn't happen at the high school level. But for football, there is some 7-on-7, but for the most part, football is still driven through the high school. So that's why it's a little different than some sports. I'm not going to read this all. The point of this is there's a lot that I do for my student athletes to try to help them as much as I can. Again, I'm not giving scholarships out, but I'll do everything I can to help kids get information, get access to things to get them potentially an opportunity. Tips for parents. Okay, some things as a parent. Your kid is a student athlete. That has to be number one. Academics will provide opportunity. That I know for a fact. Well, not opportunity, but open up doors, more opportunities potentially. The higher GPA, the more recruitable they are. It's just what it is. Must begin thinking about tomorrow, today. So, think about getting your kids onto college campuses, driving over to Cal on a Saturday or something, or Stanford, or whatever it may be. Encourage them playing as many and doing as many things as they can. For football, a lot of coaches want to ask me, what other sports do they play? There's specialization, I know, is a big thing now, but at the college level, you're going to have to specialize most likely, but they want to know what kind of athlete they're getting. So the more things that they can check, say this kid ran, he's a defensive back in football, but he also runs 100 in the track, and they have a 100 score time. That is also helpful. He's an offensive lineman, but he also wrestles, and he won NCS in wrestling. Man, that just tells you that he's a tough kid, and he can move a little bit. And so again, just another thing that coaches can use to help check some boxes and know what they're getting. Keep records, and that's easy. You have Aries, so not worry about that. Start thinking about where is a place of interest for my child, and just know that it may not work for that particular school, but keep the options open. Check Division III, Division II, Division I, check some JUCOs, just open it up, be open to all the opportunities and potential schools. Again, every sport's different. For football, I tell parents, if you got a question, you're not sure, ask me, and I'm willing to help. Again, every sport's different, not throwing any coaches under the bus or saying they do things wrong or don't do it. But again, every sport's different. They would be your cheapest resource available if recruiting is working through them. My personal piece of advice is, if you're going to use a recruiting service, I tell my parents it's a waste of money, because there's a lot of things that I do that they do and they charge $1,500, $2,000. Again, every sport's different. But I tell them, at the end of the day, it's your money, it's your kid. Obviously, you got to do what you think is best. Research the recruiting service, see what you're actually getting for your money if you choose to do that. If you're going to use a personal trainer or a hitting coach or whatever it is, do your research. That's all. There's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that are just trying to make a buck off of you and your kid, and you want to make sure you're getting what you're paying for. Be realistic. For example, football. there is 90,000 football players in California. So what about 25,000 seniors? And only about 500 are going to get a scholarship every year in California. That's 0.6%. Again, they don't grow on. I showed you the numbers a minute ago. Some sports only have 4.5. So it's not like they have thousands and thousands of these scholarships available. Everyone will not get a scholarship. I'm not saying don't try to discourage you or discourage your child, just being realistic. Be honest, like I'll tell a kid, I love you. I think you're a great football player, but Division I's probably not going to happen right now. You can go JUCO, or you can look at Division II, Division III opportunities. And maybe that Division I opportunity does happen, but you've got to be realistic. Control what you can control. You can control your academics. For football, for us, strength training is a major thing. You can control your attitude and being the best person you can be. Those are the 4 things you can control, and control what you can control. You can't control college coaches offering you scholarships or not. You can do your best to present information and get in touch with them, but at the end of the day, their livelihood depends on on their players in many sports. So they're going to offer who they think is the best players to make them successful as a team, and obviously for their jobs. What can you do to help yourself? Be organized, have a plan, research schools, make grades. That's the number one thing. Again, grades. Have a great, let's get this football specific a little bit here. Have a great off season. Do the best you can. Make your next year or your season right now the best it can be, because the more the team succeeds, the more chances, opportunities there will be for all the individual players, right? Because if a college coach goes, oh man, this school over here, Castro Valley's softball team is on a roll. I mean, they're beating this team, that team that are pretty good. Or, you're playing a good team and maybe they're recruiting the other team, but yet your team is playing really, really good and you have a great game, and you get a couple of hits off their Division I pitcher or whatever it is, and boom, now you got some exposure potentially. Take tests, again, not mandatory, but I recommend it. For me, I tell my kids, let me know your SAT scores or ACT scores so I can put on my recruiting list that I send out to schools. Again, every coach's sport's different. Be realistic, be a team player, and again, don't caught up what you can't control. In conclusion, all right, when I tell recruiters, again, for me, for my sport, I have to be honest, okay? I have to. Number one, I have to be honest. Am I going to do my best? I'm not going to say that you're a terrible person, but, if they say, oh, how's his work ethic in the weight room? I'm going to say, you know what? He can be better. He's working on it. He's improved, but he's not there yet. Hopefully that makes sense. Letters and emails. This is a great way. Again, you're recruiting questionnaires. A lot of times you get in their system. For me, I send information out to every school in the country. So hopefully the schools are getting, they don't return all my emails, but hopefully a lot of these schools are putting these kids' information into their database. So you'll get emails, you'll get letters. They're great. Sometimes it's a mass email. That's okay. But some of these schools will send you stuff through the mail or through email now. Camps, again, that's a great opportunity to get evaluated. They're usually not to teach you how to play. So if you're like a first-year player, that's probably not the best thing to do. If you're trying to get evaluated and maybe try to work on a skill or two or compete a little bit, that's what that's for. To showcase yourself and your skill set and how good of a athlete and player you may be. Again, take a test score if you can, ACT or ACT is by the junior year. Again, scholarships, I tell the kids, I don't give out scholarships. So there's nothing at the end of the day that I'm going to do that's going to get you a scholarship. I can do whatever I can to help and get your name out there, get information to school, get them your transcript, get them on campus, and get you seen. Get you, hook them up so they're coming out, watch us at our spring practice, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I don't give scholarships, but I'll do everything I can to help you, or also find a place for you to play. I tell the kids, my football players, if you really, really want to play football, I could find you a place. You know, maybe in the middle of Iowa or Montana or Pennsylvania at a small school. But if you really want to play football, I can help find you a place. So there's opportunities out there to continue to play college sports if you really want to. Last, keep both feet at Castro Valley until you are finished with your senior year. This is where you're at. Enjoy this time. If you're getting a scholarship, if getting a scholarship is more important than being part of the team, then $200,000 is probably a little on the low end, depending on if it's a full ride or not. But you got to be present and enjoy being part of your team right now, because if you're a team person, then the school might be more willing to invest in you. If you're a selfish person, you don't like your team, you're I don't know, problem with the coaches or umpires or referees or whatever it is, then most like some chances, it might be more of a detriment for you to give a scholarship, or you might be less likely to get one. This third point, I truly believe this: high school is way more enjoyable than college sport, just because you get to be a high school kid. You're not at sport 24. You're not at sports school 24/7 like you are at the college level. It's just different. There's nothing like, for me, I say there's nothing like Friday night lights. High school football on Friday nights is just a special deal. Not that Saturday afternoons are not, or Sunday afternoons or Monday nights aren't. Not saying that, but high school is just a unique time in a young person's life, and enjoy being that. Because sometimes a little bit of that joy might go away when that's all you're doing 24/7, unless you were just absolutely in love with the sport you play. And some enjoy being a high school athlete. You only get to do this once. If you take care of business in the classroom, if you're working hard at your sport, more opportunities might present themselves in the shape of some type of scholarship or full ride for some sports. But again, it's a small percentage of kids who go on to play Division I sports with scholarships. Doesn't mean don't try. Doesn't mean don't shoot for that. Just know it's a very select few. And if you become one of those select few, you should be proud of yourself and what you accomplished. And if not, that's okay. You know, unfortunately, sports are going to end for all of us. It ended for me, it ended for your parents. If they played, sports will end. So be okay if you're doing well in school and you enjoy playing your sports and you did everything you can. At the end of the day, you should be happy with what you accomplished, and hopefully your experience as a high school athlete, if that's the end of it, will help carry you on with the next phase of your life, whether it's in college or trade school or the workforce or whatever it may be. Well, again, hopefully some of this information was relevant for you, and if you have some questions, you can always email me, and I will gladly help you with some information. My email is D as in dog, and then my last name, MOLZEN @cv.k12.ca.us. And even if you're a volleyball player or track athlete or whatever it is, golf, and you may have a question or two or something I presented, please don't be afraid to shoot me an email, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. So hopefully some of this information was worth your time, and hopefully you learned about a thing or two about the recruiting process. Thank you for your time, and see you later.